Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Financial District, a production of the Museum of Chinese in America, or MoCA. My name is James Hu, and a member of the MoCA board. During my career as an M&A lawyer, I had the privilege of talking to the leading minds of the business world. In this podcast, we will share with you their insights, experiences, and strategies. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Harry Yu, a veteran dealmaker, investor, and strategist whose work spans finance, technology, and investment. Harry is currently a board member of Broadcom and was a board member and sponsor who took public the quantum computing company IonQ. He has also taken public Rush Street Interactive, Genius Sports, Planet Labs, and is in the process of taking public Horizon Quantum. He is also the chairman of the board of Rain Enhancement Technologies Holdco. Prior to taking on board roles, Harry held many prominent positions, including EVP overseeing the chairman's office of EMC Corporation, CEO of KPMG Consulting, CFO of Oracle, and CFO of Accenture. Prior to working on the corporate side, Harry was a managing director in the investment banking division of Morgan Stanley. Welcome, Harry.
Thanks very much, James. It's my pleasure to do this podcast with you.
Great. Why don't we start with a broad question that sets the stage? At the macro level, what do you see as the fundamental themes driving the global economy today?
Well, it's James, a really fascinating time. Obviously, the predominance of AI and the fact that in the United States, we can have the top 7 to 10 companies be now well over the half the market value of the S&P 500 is staggering, but also the fact that other than a handful of companies around the world like TSMC in Taiwan and other sort of limited examples, the U.S. tech industry has really been quite dominant. I mean, it surprised me when I was looking up at what's going on in the UK, and there's ARM, the semiconductor company, which is depending on the day, between 150 to 200 billion US dollars in market cap. But I think the next biggest British tech company is only about $12 billion. So it's that factor is really amazing. The AI is just, and we'll talk more about this later, James, is just having such a profound effect. And I think truly anyone who's intellectually humble would profess not knowing how this will turn out. And then I think the global economy has challenges because I think in virtually all countries, income and wealth inequality is a big problem and issue. What to do about migration issues. There continue to be cyber threats. And then, of course, there's been the injection of this exogenous factor of protectionism, which has disrupted the global supply chain. So if you're on a public company board, or if you're working in a decent sized private company, there's a lot to worry about these days.
Yeah. And would you say what you're currently seeing got you more worried than, say, in recent times in your career? Is it kind of the peak uncertainties in your experience?
Well, I think there are always ebbs and flows, but what's unique, James, and maybe you call it a peak, but I tend not to get too worried about things. There does seem like there are a lot more factors, but then the real subtlety is that each of the factors are changing much more dynamically and quickly, and I think it's because the technology and the tech industry itself is driving exponential change. So it's causing all these factors to almost have a force multiplication, which is making it more challenging for principals and businesses and government.
Yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned AI. I'm posing a question to you, not sure if it's fair. Uh, What is your overall view of artificial intelligence, and do you think it's a good thing or bad thing to human beings?
Well, optimistically, I hope all of us make it a, good thing. But what I would say, and there's a double-edged sword to this, if you look, I've had now about a 40-year business career, and there have been many factors that have been double-edged swords, but generally, we've gone through them and the standard of living has increased, whether it was outsourcing the internet. The economy adjusts, people adjust. There are always serious issues that one can't minimize, of people who get left behind in the transition. But AI is pretty mind-boggling what's going to happen. It blows me away that, as an example, the latest ChatGPT model, if it took some IQ tests, it would have an IQ of 148. Then there was another one, three other large language models, I think, passed the certified financial analyst test, which is three multi-hour tests each, and passed that in about 40 minutes. And the estimate from the entity that's organizes and administers the test is it should be several hundred hours of study. I think like 1,000 hours of study. And so, for a large language model to do that is amazing. I think Jamie Dimon had a recent, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase had a recent comment that, they would shrink the number of junior bankers to senior bankers from 6 to 1 to 4 to 1. So that's just a profound, profound change. And, seeing it in a lot of professional services business. And I get concerned because if you look at college graduate unemployment or underemployment, or business school graduate unemployment or underemployment, it's been in the 20% range when, normally it's low to mid single digits at worst. So these are really profound changes. People will adjust. What's daunting is, on the board of Broadcom, we're one of the two leading purveyors and suppliers of AI chips. And just to give historical context, when Professor Turing of Cambridge University in the UK developed one of the first working computers, it had 19,000 vacuum tubes or 19,000 transistors that could reflect either 0 or 1 and did the calculation. Now, an individual Broadcom chip, they call them XPUs, or processing units, has on a chip transistors. And the data centers that you read about that are, consuming all the power and water, right now have 100 to 200,000 of these chips. But in the next year or two, the chips will have about 2 trillion transistors, and an individual data center could have as many as 1 million of those chips. So the computational power that's going to be accessible is, truly mind-boggling. And so, how people adjust, I think this will be the biggest challenge that, whether you're a college graduate or a, middle-aged professional services worker, this is, going to be the biggest challenge one has ever faced. But, at the same time, I think fundamentally each person is going to have to figure out how they deliver their own personal human intelligence, right? And just having insights that go beyond just being a raw data repository, or, a simple equation or algorithm as to how to look at things, right? And I think the education system, universities will have to change what they teach. And I'm hopeful that they can adjust. And the ultimate paradox, James, may be it, may swing us back to where people believe it's most important to have a liberal education, right? To be a Renaissance person and to understand, more fields, including the humanities, because that's what it's going to take to outthink a computer. But this is a deep, deep challenge for people to think about and worry about.
Yeah, no, that resonates with me. It sounded like where AI is, it sort of is catching up with what I call the junior professionals level of proficiency, right? So you see this perhaps comment from business leaders that, right, the leverage between a senior professional and a junior professional would sort of change as a result of the adoption of AI. But so far, it feels like the senior professionals, their experience, right, their judgment, their ability to connect the dots, that's what I think you were referring to as the liberal arts and ability to have a broad range. That is so far not being entirely replaceable by AI. So that makes total sense to me.
Yeah, and I think, James, the challenge at the same time we've had the post-pandemic issues of people returning to work, because I actually think, and maybe I'm sounding old-fashioned, but if there are associates at your esteemed firm, Clary Gottlieb, there's more of an imperative for them to hang out with partners like you to learn as much as possible, because the simple stuff that you could get by and maybe go through the first 7 years before making a partner on, that's getting commoditized. But it's kind of what, the subtleties to get a transaction across the goal line, to sort of see all the different facets, but then kind of to pull out of the back of your brain. And we'll talk about this later in terms of how people should think through their careers, but to pull out from the back of your brain, some unusual precedent or something that helps solve a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also thought the in-person, and this is maybe a digression a little bit, the in-person interaction has a irreplaceable aspect to it because you are picking up a lot of clues and other, right, kind of just say maybe body language that you are not able to just by staring at an email or frankly, right, participating in a Zoom meeting. So a lot of the information is lost if you're not in person, you're not observing. And in-person interaction itself can trigger additional discussion, which may not right happen if you're just corresponding via email or calls. So I'm completely sort of in agreement with you that there is an aspect of inhuman interaction that's critical to train "quote unquote" our own algorithm, right? Certainly, I did that when I was a junior professional. I thought that was hugely beneficial.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. I won't name the name. I don't want to embarrass my a colleague, but there was a very ambitious, smart, presentable woman that I worked with when I was CFO of one of the companies, and she was controller, and she basically asked if. For different several day windows, she could just follow me around. And when I was CFO, and I said yes, because she was kind of on the short list to be considered to replace me at some point, which she did. But it was fascinating because in the end, she was super astute. She picked up, if I went to an investor meeting, how I interacted with people, and she'd ask, and I'd say I did this because I'm thinking two steps ahead relative to this fund, and what they might need. And was very proud. She went on to be my successor, and then has been on the audit committee of two companies that are in the Fortune 50 in the United States. And she was innately capable, so I'm not taking credit, but I think she would acknowledge that it just helps watching someone actually do the job. But it's not by Zoom, or it's not by email, but it's just seeing the different subtleties. But being able to ask someone, she say, Harry, why did you say it this way in the earnings call script? And I'd mention, and she go, wow, that's like kind of the second or third level of trying to help maneuver the situation.
I have no doubt, and I'll double click this for our young listeners as a very good piece of advice. Digging on the computing end, you took IonQ public. Could you please tell us a bit more what is quantum computing and how it differs from traditional computing?
Definitely. One of the things we'll talk about later is I just think hopefully it's innate within each of you, but just having intellectual curiosity is important. And so I'm 66 now, but I love learning about new things, learning from different people, and so my investment company partner and I took public IonQ. It was the first publicly traded. Uh, Quantum hardware company. And quantum computing and quantum physics is actually how nature works. And so, um, when I talked before about the transistors and the zeros and ones, that's sort of man's simplification or representation to do calculations and to describe different phenomena. But what quantum computing is instead of the zeros and ones, you'll actually look at a continuum of what the outcomes are. There's a quantum mechanics concept called superposition that basically says that an atom can be two places at the same time, but it kind of explains why when you see someone have a prescription for a drug, it might work well for that person, but not for someone else. It might work when you have a full stomach versus an empty stomach. And the reason is how all these molecules interact in a quantum process is actually fundamentally random. And so, it's not like there's an equation and, you take an aspirin, it does this to your inflammation. But, the aspirin as it flows through your bloodstream, how it interacts with the cells in your body is a random process. And so the exciting thing is quantum computers are going to really help out on drug discovery, on material science, on energy conservation, on how you engineer the right type of fertilizers, these processes that are fundamentally natural phenomenon that a normal computer, what people call a classical computer, can't simulate. And the mind-boggling thing about it, and we'll move on to the next topic, James, is that remember I talked about the transistors and a quantum computer, the transistor equivalent now is an individual atom. So the companies like IonQ, they'll have a chip with a laser beam inside in a perfect vacuum, and you will have these individual, in the case of IonQ, barium or terbium isotope atoms dance on the laser, and those are giving the continuum between 0 and 1 based on their energy intensity. So you can see on the physicist computer, if you did a tour of IonQ, you can see the individual atoms just like lined up on the laser, and those are the transistor equivalent. So now we're getting to the, atomic level, right? It's the smallest possible level it could be. But what's exciting, and there's been a quantum stock mania with retail investors, is there's just a whole class of problems it can solve. But I think what's exciting about it is a lot of these, especially in the pharmaceutical side, will be super beneficial for mankind because they're riddles or puzzles that heretofore couldn't be solved by a normal classical computer or just trial and error in some drug companies' clinical trials.
That is all amazing. If I were to summarize, perhaps inaccurately for our reader, I think what I'm hearing is instead of this blunt instrumentality of a binary 0 or 1 computing regime that we are currently seeing in the mainstream, quantum computing is a more nuanced and more refined process that sort of operates on a continuum. That's an atomized process that's a more perhaps sensitive and accurate.
Yeah, it's more fundamentally accurate, James, because life in nature is generally a quantum process, right? So the famous Nobel laureate James Feynman has a famous quote. He said, "All of nature is quantum mechanical process. And I think he says, "Damn it," at the end in his class lecture. But that's what's exciting about that.
Absolutely. I think as in life, as in investment and business, we all need to have this sense of humility because at the end of the day, what we're dealing with is probabilities. It is a quantum process. It is a result of a set of random outcomes. So all we can do is control what we can control and try to manage the probability to our advantage.
Yes.
Awesome. In your capacity as board members generally, how do you think companies should manage the uncertainties in today's world as a general matter?
Well, I think it's actually, probably the most challenging topic for boards, as you know, James, from your work, is CEO succession. And when you trying to find the right CEO, I think right up there is finding the right person, the right man or woman who can see around corners and sort of project the future, but understand all these risks in different scenarios. And so I think that's it's getting back to our AI discussion. It's a part of human intelligence that's underestimated. I don't think computer will ever be able to do it, but it's projecting ahead, which is super important. So just to give you examples, I think we do the classic things in the different boards I'm on laying out all the top risks that our public company faces, but I think ultimately it's pushing management, but then candidly, it's having management that just has that innate, right side of brain capability to process these things. So, you know what? We have a very good CEO at Broadcom, Hock Tan, and he has a wonderful background. He's electrical engineering. Graduate from MIT, but then he also has a finance degree from Harvard Business School. So he has two huge facets of what's important today. But as an example, we don't need to push him much, if at all, because in terms of seeing around corners, when the whole Liberation Day tariff regime came in, of course, all of us on the asked about it, but he had already thought through for several years. But that's why he's a great CEO. It's like you just have to think of these things in advance, but then push your people to solve these problems in advance. So it's not just some theoretical issue that you panic about when it happens.
Yeah, well said. There's no substitute of picking the right person, and once you have the right person in place, and sort of 90% of the job is done because you can then delegate.
Yeah, and then I think, for your younger people on the podcast, it's like, developing that, skill in yourself. It's like what comes ahead, and preparing yourself in terms of the right job you pick, the right career. It's just something to push yourself on. And one quick aside I'll make. James is, when I went to college in my freshman dorm, like 2 floors above me was the young man who, in the previous year, senior year in high school, won the World Math Olympiad. And I just remembered having like a third year calculus problem, and I'd go outside the dorm, see if his light was on, knock on his door, and something that took me like 4 hours, it would take him literally 2 minutes. And so I, asked him, Steve, how'd you get so smart? And he basically said, Harry, the key is to just think all the time. And I've taken that to heart, because I think if you kind of, wrap your head around different scenarios, what might happen, think about, what you could do better on your job, how you could manage your family life better, but you're not just zoning out. It's like a huge advantage. And as I've gotten older, it's like, it's harder for me to physically work like you do, James, and work 80 or 100 hours a week. But I can sit on the couch, and if I'm thinking, at least I'm, keeping up with you.
Well, I just turned 40, but indeed, I recently did work 100 hours a week, so that is still doable.
No, I'm sure you
I'm
do
not sure if
constantly.
that's
So
sustainable for how long, but got your point. Yep. Great. What a great segue into your personal background, Harry. Tell us a little bit of your kind of background growing up. What is driving you, and how did you get into finance in the first instance, then business, and now perhaps investing?
Happy to. My parents were a couple of the first Korean immigrants who came to the U.S. After the Korean War in 1955. And my mother was from a well-off background. My father was from a more humble background, and anyway, they both were academics, and they wanted my younger brother and me to do well in school. They were very much uh, pro assimilating as much as possible with American culture. And like most Asian parents, my younger brother and I were, pushed to excel in school, to try to achieve excellence in whatever we did. And I'll never forget my parents probably wanted us both, both my brother and me, to be academics, but on my mother's side of the family, maybe where I got the finance gene. Her father was a very prominent banker in Korea way back when, and so anyway, my parents said, "Look, just make sure you're happy in life." But then second, my mom would always exhort, be the best that you can be, and she's turning 94 next week, so I'm going to visit her. And she had a great line, James. She said, "There are some things I'd rather have you do, but if whatever you do, just be the best at it. If you're the best plumber in town, you're going to make a great living." And so she and I laughed a few months ago. I don't know if you saw, there was a Wall Street Journal article just saying that good plumbers in Manhattan with a nice personal franchise were making like $1 million a year. And I told her, it's like, boy, you were right about that plumbing thing. Uh, and it's true, right? And so I think as the younger people on your podcast think about the disruptions on AI, right? It's, as I was thinking through in the earlier part of my career, like, try not to do something that could be offshore, that someone could do in another country for a tenth of the price. But then also, I think, try to think through what a computer can't so readily do, right? And that'll be the way to, in a general sense, guide your career.
That is very wise. I was not aware of plumber being a millionaire, but now you said it, it makes total sense.
Yeah, no, it's and I urge your listeners, you have to kind of think through industry, dynamics, and take, if you're still in college, take at least one economics class. But like in plumbing, there's some licenses, so there's some barriers. There's also some specific know-how, but then it's good because you're oftentimes to help your pricing, you're dealing with emergencies, right? So James, it's like when we hire your firm and there's a M&A situation and we need someone like you, or when there's an antitrust situation and you need someone like George Carey at your firm, that's someone with particular expertise and it's urgent, then that's a premium personal business model situation. Anyway, I think in the end, to finish off the answer to your question, it's just I'm driven to learn more. I think all these studies as I get older on longevity, keeping your brain active, but also keeping your social network going, is just really, really important. And fortunately, in the work I do now and in investments, now that I'm finished on the Wall Street side or corporate side, I interact with a lot of young people who are entrepreneurs and have these amazing startups, and it's just incredibly intellectually invigorating, right? Because for all the older generation and those in the media try to you know uh torque a narrative that the younger people aren't working hard or aren't industrious. It's just that, total nonsense, right? It's kind of what happens every generation, when elders complain about the youth. But I get to meet literally hundreds of companies, and they're just doing the most amazing innovation. So, what I've gravitated to now is helping take some of these companies public, and it's kind of awe-inspiring stuff. I mean, you mentioned some of the other companies we've taken public. I'll mention one in particular, Planet Labs. There are three ex NASA rocket scientists, and the normal commercial satellite costs $800 million, and they figured out how to make a satellite for $250,000 each, the size of a shoebox. And so, thanks to launch capability from like Elon Musk, SpaceX, or from India and China, they put up 250 satellites that are geosynchronous around the Earth, and they're the only company that has 100% coverage of the Earth's land and sea mass. And they do some defense applications, so you may see them cited in photos. When the Ukrainians were able to blunt the Russian tank columns, they had the benefit of these pictures that are always available on what's going on below. And then for agriculture, what's amazing is each of these little shoebox satellites has a spectrometer that can measure chemical composition of soil. So they can say, James, your, side gig of your corn farm in Iowa, in this quadrant of the parcel, it's short of nitrogen. And they'll contact the John Deere Caterpillar dealer, and they'll go out and sprinkle fertilizer and increase your yield. And so this sort of stuff blows me away, that that people could bootstrap themselves and create companies like this. So I love hanging out with people like this, but also it's an encouraging thing for your listeners. There's still huge problems to be solved. There's capital out there if you have a great idea, and it's just really your energy and dogged perseverance to get through obstacles. And if you do, you could do just incredibly well, and make a big contribution to society or your pocketbook, whatever is most important to you.
And I'm sure those entrepreneurs greatly appreciated your mentorship and your wisdom when you work with them. So,
Yeah,
well,
no, James, it's like the clients you advise, right? The great thing about getting older, and you're still super young, is the answers to the test are pretty readily apparent, because you've seen the same exams and same exam questions before. So people appreciate that you can give them high certainty about what the correct answer is.
awesome. In hindsight, are there any particular decisions you made that turned out to be very pivotal to your career?
So I'll be kind of broad and provocative, if you don't mind. I actually think the vast majority of people, um, the vast majority of times, make mistakes on career choices, and often really serious mistakes. And the model I've always thought through, James, is life is like a skyscraper building, right? It's like you're building at Liberty Plaza. But the fascinating thing about it is there's a lot of lateral mobility on any given floor. But how I look at it are, there different rung ladders hanging, each with different number of rungs to get from one floor to the next floor above. And so part of the secret of success in life is figuring out the right rung ladder. But also a big mistake people make is so you don't want something with so many rungs that it's kind of a dead end, and you have to work 20 years just to get a title or promotion, right? But then the other mistake I see people constantly make is, at some level you have to have patience, and you have to just say, I'm on this ladder with, let's say it's your great law firm, and it has, a rung for each year. It has 10 rungs. If at all possible, I advise people just like stick it out, make sure you get to the next floor because once you get to the next floor, there's so many more opportunities that present themselves to you. And so often people kind of quit because it seems arduous. They change buildings, and you lose a lot of time. Obviously there are reasons to change if you can't climb that particular ladder. But the other subtlety of mistake I think people make too is, in the end, what's really served me well. And I was talking with one of my former bosses and mentors, was the CEO of Accenture, and we got on this topic because we were talking about my son and his two sons, and the challenges they face today. But a real fundamental is you have to choose a good person, a good, decent person who you can learn from as your boss, but it also needs to be in the context of a good company. And so oftentimes people pick a great sounding company, but if you have a crappy boss, then that's not going to do you any good because you won't learn as much. They won't mentor and nurture you and promote you and pay you. And at the same time, often people will go with someone who's friendly and nice to them, but it's a company in an industry or the company itself is not going anywhere. And so I tell people you have to look at your job decision like buying a stock. You're buying a stock in the company. You're betting on the person who's your boss, and those are real subtleties to get right. And
And
so
you are making an investment of the most precious resource, which is time.
yeah, it's your only career. It's your only you have one life, and the thing I would say, and now I'm approaching my 50th high school reunion, which is later in the month, and I'll have my 50th college reunion soon. But just to be provocative, why I want all your listeners to think way more, 10 times more than you normally think on these career decisions and what areas to learn, what company, what mentor, what boss, all this stuff is that, when you look at like the top Ivy League graduates and how much they make, and this is not to say that money is the ultimate benchmark, but I think it's indicative. If you look at what people are making from the best schools 25 years out, it's actually a really underwhelming number. And when I look at my classmates, a lot of them have just made these decisions at these critical junctures that were so suboptimal for them personally, and they would admit it now. And it just it is something that I urge your listeners to be super careful of. I would always, as I made a decision, get guidance from older people I respected. Actually think a correlate, which is part causal and part just a correlation, is I think people who do well, and this gets back to an Asian-like theme. They respect their elders, but they treat their elders well because you can use an elder to help make one of these decisions. And so every decision I've made at every critical juncture, I probably talked to at least 3 to 5 wise people, right? Just to make sure that I made the right decision. And I think that's so underrated. And then just finishing up on the respect for elders thing, when I look at some of the people I've seen do incredibly well in private equity or finance or fields like yours, James, they really know how to get along with senior people, right? Because in the end, you can tap their wisdom, experience, get their judgment on stuff. Because in the end, everyone is some of their judgments, and people will often make just incredibly irrational decisions for a little bit of pay increase. To be because the recruiter's pitch was nice, but all these dynamics are important. The other thing I'd throw out that is probably a little bit controversial too, but I think you just have to also be in areas or localities that have enough critical mass of excellence in what you're doing. So it's just really hard to succeed if you're in the middle of nowhere. Is the way I would put it. And if you look at people who become successful in their profession, they're usually in one of the centers of excellence or critical mass areas in the country that is good in that field. My son, as he graduated, he did the classic post graduation trip, and he wanted to go to Italy, and so I arranged, as a young guy, he's interested in sports cars, and so I arranged that he visit the factory at Lamborghini and Ferrari. But what was fascinating is it's not just Lamborghini and Ferrari within 10 miles of each other. It's Ducati, it's the motorcycle company, it's Bugatti, which is even more exotic, and they're all clustered because you just have this group of artisans, group of engineers. You have the local university, the University of Bologna, which trains great automotive engineers. And so, if you wanted to do that for your living, and one of his classmates on his trip has got after he saw the tour, sort of got into the graduate automotive engineering program at Bologna. It's like you just have to be at the place where there's excellence. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. In some place that's backwater and what you want to be good at, or what excites you.
Yeah, there's a reason why all the startups, or not all, but a lot of the startups appear in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, no, it's just critical mass, right? It's the whole ecosystem. You can find people who can be part of the corporate staff. You need an engineer who has a certain programming skill. You can find them because they're around there. Maybe they want to switch jobs, or maybe they're graduating from one of the many great universities there. So that's the other thing I'd consider too. But anyway, hopefully I've imparted to all your listeners, James. It's a really profound decision. People spend, only 20th as much time as they should thinking about it, getting the right advice and so forth.
No, absolutely. I think people sometimes overlook the fact that we progress our life on a linear timeline, that the decision that you make is, again, I don't think there is absolutely no room for making a bad decision, but the more bad decisions you would have made would compound into, I guess, a completely different direction of your career than you would perhaps otherwise anticipate.
Yeah, and not to make it sound too daunting, but we're clearly living in an exponential age, and what I've advised some of my son's classmates is especially now early on, where just if you had thought about your investment portfolio, you want to save now, compound because it's profound for later. It's the same with your career, and making a mistake now, in an exponential age technologically, there's much more opportunity cost or loss than there was 30 years ago. So you just really have to treat these decisions as sacrosanct. And it's, not that you can't make mistakes, but boy, I would be, if I were 22 again, I'd be really focused on getting great experience, but also, to use the investment term, loss avoidance.
Makes total sense. What I also took away from your discussion was when something does not work, it may just be it is not working now. It doesn't mean it won't work if you give it time, because sometimes you need that compounding over time to see the effect fully played out.
Well, and exactly, James. That's a great way of putting it. But that's also why, being in a great firm or company, or having a great boss, is so important, because even if things are going more slowly, then you're not compounding a mistake. It's just a patience, perseverance thing. Versus if you made that initial decision correctly, and then it could be, you could be mired and impair yourself in
Yeah,
your
and then the
trajectory.
focus should be on spotting and creating the right conditions, right? So that Yeah, going back to your the probability kind of analysis that you have maximized the probability that a good outcome would grow out of that.
Yes.
Perfect. Uh, any passing words you would have to our audience that sort of maybe the one last piece of advice you have that in the event you haven't talked about it yet?
Well, I think you and I talked about this a little beforehand, but it's just important to keep on top of what's going on in the world, right? And you know the Warren Buffett advice he gives to young people, sort of talking about what he does every day. I think is I thought it sounded a little too simplistic in the beginning, but I appreciate it more and more. He just said I read 5 newspapers every day and cover to cover. And I saw Jamie Dimon said he reads like 3 cover to cover every morning. You know, the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase. You know, at 4 to 5 o'clock before he does his workout, and it really makes sense because especially in this world where a computer can mechanistically compete with you, synthesizing all types of knowledge in all types of fields. Uh, I especially because I'm interested in tech. I'll always scan my Apple News feed, and you know I love seeing the articles from Scientific American or Popular Mechanics, and I think I only took one college computer science class. Nothing in science in college, but it's all on high school science. But you know, you can train yourself, and I would just have the mental discipline. You know what I think is amazing. You know about the world, you can be on your phone to doom scroll, or every time I read one of these articles, if there's a term or scientific concept I don't understand, I just plug it in and get the explanation. I just think it's amazing what you can learn on your own without you know formal training. I mean, obviously, I wish I had studied you know being an AI chip engineer. You know, many years ago, but you know, you know, such is life. But being on top of things, James, is so fundamental. And you know, as another example, I always pester attorneys like you to get on the mailing list for the different law firm bulletins, right? Because it's just to me, it's fascinating. What are the topical court decisions, pieces of litigation, innovative transactions, and just spending a little time to read those is super helpful. So you just have more peripheral vision in this ever-changing world.
Awesome. Keep learning and stay informed. What a great way to end today's very informative session with you, Harry. Thank you again for your time.
No, thank you, James.